Welcome once again to this session. We're really happy to have you here. You were particularly chosen because we know that aside from the lead researchers who have done an amazing work, you would be able to share your insights from professional angle and also from personal experience so that we, the audience, would have a lot to take home today. So once again, you're welcome to this panel session. Another round of applause, please, for them, because the amount of wisdom and knowledge that we're going to receive from them today cannot be purchased anywhere. So diving in, I would like to start with the first question for today. And the first question goes to QS Choma, who is the HOD of the Bayes University. So in light of the questionnaire survey's revelations about the Nigerian-specific obstacles hindering women graduate entries into the construction industry, what innovative strategies do you propose to dismantle these barriers and forge a more inclusive path forward?
Okay, thank you very much for that specific question. I would like to lend my voice to the findings of the research that we are talking about today. The researchers have been able to categorize the strategies to dismantling these barriers into three: the organizational level, the industry level, and the personal level. So just to add one or two things to what they have said, I think one of the strategies that will attract and retain female graduates in the construction industry is to promote visibility of successful women in the industry. So I'm going to throw more light on this. While in school, we had only one female lecturer. Although I'd already, made up my mind to tour the academic route, but I was, in a doubt whether to do this, whether it's going to be feasible. But the only thing that gave me, the courage to push forward was because I saw a female lecturer living the dream. So I knew it was possible. Initially, we're used to seeing male lecturers when we go for conferences. You hardly see women, talk. You hardly see women being, projected, being visible. So, but one of the things that gave me the push to toe the lane I have chosen is because I saw a woman doing that work excellently. So one of the things the industry can do is to promote visibility of women that are already successful in this industry so that they can inspire the young graduates to remain in the industry. Then another thing they can do is to, collaborate with organizations and institutions that will roll out programs for women inclusion and retention, apart from also rolling out equitable policies that are gender biased, that will also help the women to remain in the industry. Then coming to the organizational role, we've talked about flexible work hours, paid leave, and all that. But I want to share an experience I had some years ago. So in 2011, I was newly married, blessed with a child, though still pregnant. And as a fresh graduate, I went for a job interview. I was qualified for the role, but during the interview, I was told, you're good for this role, but we wish you were single because we don't know how you're going to cope, and very soon you'll be looking for maternity leave. And that was not a very good experience for me. It was part of the reasons that made me to, enter the business lane. And by God's grace, I was able to, come back when I have gathered more skills and expertise. Then going to the personal roles, you as a female, what do you need to do to, dismantle these barriers and remain? One of the things that helped me was identifying a problem and developing myself to become a solution to the problem. And I will tell you the problem I identified. While in school, I was telling one of us during the break we had, we had just 2 full-time lecturers. The rest were practicing, and they will come in few weeks to the exam, and they will bombard you back to back, all the course content and modules. We found it very difficult to cope. So I saw that there was a need for lecturers in this profession, and I decided to, take on that need and become a solution to it. So while in school, I kept, doing some tutorials for the younger ones, and it continued like that. So you cannot say that you're in a male-dominated industry, there is nothing for you to do. There is so many things you can do. Just identify one of the problems and develop yourself to become a solution to that problem. Then another thing you can do is to keep developing yourself. We keep talking about acquiring skills. This saying, what do you bring to the table? We're already outnumbered by the male counterparts. So you need to bring in something special, something that will make you to be sought after, so that when they are talking about this particular thing, your name rings a bell. When they are talking about gender issues, you will not feel, if you count 1, 2 people, you must talk about Professor Colomri. Do you understand? So you need to, specialize, acquire more skills that will stand you out and make you to be sought after and relevant in the industry. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much for sharing your insights and also your personal story. Just a personal question, maybe not so personal, but did you go back to those people that rejected you to tell them that in your faces now? I mean, it's so important for women. Yes, absolutely, because I share the same. I'm funny. I have a similar story with her employment. I got pregnant, and then when I went for my maternity leave, the HR sent me a letter saying your services are no longer required. And they were trying to put it on me like I had a problem. I immediately wrote to my head of department, and I was like, did you know about this letter? And he says he had no idea. And why would they say I shouldn't come back? That it's probably a management decision or something. Not a problem. I took a few months off. Later on, I got another job. Guess who is poaching their people now for more jobs? I mean, it's just, let's just keep at it. And I love that, you didn't let that deter you. You found a way to kill time. You started a business venture, which has built something very, very remarkable now. And then, you still didn't give up, and you still went on to continue, which is what we women should do. We should learn not to give up. We should learn to keep pushing, because we're going to get the obstacles. They would keep coming, but we should continue the push. Thank you so much, QS Choma, for sharing those insights. We're really, really grateful for that. So I'm going to move on to my second panelist. Don't worry, we're still coming to you. There are plenty more. That's Professor Rukayat Bashir Tukur from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. And the question goes thus. The survey findings have uncovered Nigeria's specific causes contributing to the alarmingly high job turnover rates among women graduates in the construction industry. How can we address these root causes and cultivate an environment that empowers and retains female talent?
Good afternoon once more. I think it's afternoon. Yes, good afternoon once more. So it's just sad that women are in a position where at any time, you're finding your biological clock in conflict with the career clock. So when you find yourself in some jobs, you yourself would have to exit because you're trying to start a family or you're trying to uphold your family values. But I think one of the major challenges that we've all faced as women is the maternity leave issue. Many organizations are not even willing to give you the length of time that government has asked that we be given. I think maternity leave by government is supposed to be about 6 months, but most organizations still give 3 to 4 months. And it's very bad. Your child may just be 3 months old at that time. It's very difficult to leave a 3-month-old baby with people you don't know most of the time. And then there aren't the enabling facilities for you usually to take your children back to work. If you're in academia, you're a bit lucky. I think one of the kindest places a woman can work is in academia. We are more flexible. We allow our children in our offices, even though it's not something that is formal, but everybody tends to look the other way. Even our students come in with their children, and we encourage that. So government has to push for that law to be that you get the 6 months, and wherever you have women working, even if it's just one woman, there should be facility for a creche, for you to bring your caregiver, to have the facility for the child and the caregiver to be close to you, so that if you are nursing a child, you can leave your office and go and nurse that child and still come back. After all, we should look at it this way. Having children is national service. Without children, we can't move on. So we are building personnel, we're building a nation. So that's one. So I've worked on sites before I went into academia. In fact, before I went into academia, I went into banking. And one of the reasons why I left banking was because I got pregnant, and each time I needed to go for my antenatal care, it was a whole struggle. And you can't leave your desk. Who is going to do this? And I'm like, I have to look after myself. Eventually, I lost that child, and I decided after losing the child, I was leaving the job. I left, I didn't have a job, and then the job in academia came on. So alhamdulillah for that. So whilst we're on site, one of the things I notice is there aren't facilities for us as women. You spend the whole day on site, you come in very early, and there isn't even a toilet you can use. There'll be a general toilet for everybody, and it will be in a place that is not even, private enough, so everybody knows you're going, and then you come out, you probably have your sanitary towels to dispose, there's nowhere to do it, you're holding it in your hand. It's a whole unfriendly place. And then they know that if I'm on site, at least I will have to perform 2 of my salahs there, the Zuhur and the Asr. There's no place for me to pray. The men will probably find one corner and just go and pray. There's no facility for that. So women on the site are already, sidelined. The third one on site as well that is usually a problem is security. Most of the laborers on the site are male. And unfortunately, the laborers in our society are usually the dregs in the society. They're usually people who are overworked, underpaid, they're angry. So you are a soft target for them. The sites are not well lit. Once you don't have proper lighting in a place, you're automatically condoning actions that should not take place. You have compromised the woman. If I have to walk a long distance from the site office to my car, or a long distance from the site office to the gate where I have to look for transport, and I have to pass through dark areas, there are things that can happen to you. Even if you are willing to take the chance, it's possible your husband, your parents may not want you to take that. So you're likely to leave the job halfway through. Now, another problem with low or high turnover is when you talk about the quota system, which is part of the study that was done. The quota system is a good one. if it can be done well. But what happens is when you have a quota system, you have mediocrity that comes in. They employ women that would not be a bother to them, that will not stand up to the men. So they would like to employ just any kind of woman, not our kind of women, you know. So, and then another part is that they try to fill the quota with lower cadre women. They don't want you to rise very quickly to managerial levels. So that is also a problem. So every time the woman is at the bottom trying to rise up, by the time she's getting there, things begin to happen. And then they say, oh, she's left. So instead of filling up her position where she ought to have been higher, they now bring somebody lower. And then when you count the numbers, the statistics are right. If they say for every one male there should be, for every 3 male there should be 1 female, you will find the statistics, but not in the right proportions. So that is a very serious area that we have to consider. And then there's a way that women are treated, even in site meetings, other meetings. You'd find, for instance, when there's a woman in a meeting and they want to call her name, they will address the man. If the man's name is Mr. Kunle Abdullahi, they will say, oh, Mr. Abdullahi. But when it's a woman and she's Rukaya Tukur, they say Rukaya or Miss Rukaya. There's always that derogatory way of addressing women that belittles you. If you're going to address me, I am Mrs. Tukur or Dr. Tukur or Professor Tukur, not Professor Rukaya or Dr. Rukaya or Mrs. Rukaya. That is what I am. So you have all those issues coming up. But I'm happy that there are men here, and I'm going to say the narrative is changing very fast. I was on a USAID program last week in Maiduguri, and we went to the field, and where we were having children who are going through an accelerated basic program, and it's an informal way of learning, but trying to bring them up to speed because of the things that have happened in the Bay States, that's Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe. And it will surprise you to know that there are more girls in school than out of school now. So for every 3 girls that you find, there's only 1 boy. That is also worrisome, because as a mother of 3 girls, who is going to marry our girls? You know, so we have to. So the gender thing is tilting now. So I would rather go for gender equity than gender equality. But I think, thank you, that we are on this table means that we have identified that there are problems, and I'm happy we're talking about them now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Rukayat. Professor Rukayat Bashir Tukur. Yes, we need to start from ourselves. So thank you for that correction. You spoke very well about, how to retain talent. But I didn't really get the last point where you talked about your preference to gender equity than gender equality. So is it? Yes, yes, you said you'd prefer gender equity than equality. So can you throw a bit more light on it? Because I'm sure that not just me, I'm sure a few of us here are still not clear. It's okay, sir. We want to learn.
Okay, let me just give you a quick example. If you're on site and you have to lift heavy machinery, a woman is not likely to be able to lift that heavy machinery. Men may be able to do it better, and they can tell you it's because he can lift it better than you. But perhaps if you had provided a platform where all that we have to do is roll the machinery onto a platform, press a button, and the lift goes up. We both have that analytical skill to do that, isn't it?
For that beautiful example, we'll definitely come back to you for more insights on that. Moving on to our third panelist, who is the surveyor in our midst, the estate surveyor in our midst, Dr. Mrs. Ethel Mendy. She's with the Department of Estate Management and Valuation, University of Abuja. And the question to you for today will be, envision a construction industry where women graduate, thrive, and excel. What transformative solutions would you advocate to enhance their employment prospects and ensure their long-term retention within this dynamic sector?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon once again. To create a construction industry where the women graduates would thrive and excel, and I have a few transformative solutions to those problems. Number one, I'm going to talk about targeted recruitment initiatives, which would include outreach programs, scholarships, and internships that are specifically designed for women. First, I want to share my own personal story with you because I am a beneficiary of a scholarship because I chose to be in the construction industry. And that gave me an opportunity to actually compete with the boys in my class. That's number one. You can't be given a scholarship and you go there and play around. So when I got that scholarship, I told myself that we were 3 in my class out of about 48 of us, only 3 females. And I told myself that between 1 to 5, I will always be amongst that group until I graduate. But unfortunately, in my year 1, I was 6th when I did the cumulative, GPA. But after then, I made sure I came top in my class. Because of what? Because of the scholarship I got. I had to prove that I would continue because that scholarship was in such a way that if you drop, the scholarship goes off. And I didn't want to disappoint my parents or myself. So I had to push on until I got to my final year. And then for the internship, as soon as I finished from there, I got a placement with the Cross River State Property Development Industry in Limited. And I had that placement because of the scholarship and because of my performance in school. So despite the fact that a lot of people were telling me, oh, this course is studious, always in school, always reading and all that, I didn't bother that much because I was being treated like a queen. So I kept pushing on that. In this profession, I will push on until I finish. And I gradually started realizing that despite the fact that I liked the practice, I knew I was going to lecture because it was a bit flexible when I got to my 3rd year because I was beginning to get into the family way at that time. So I told myself that I have to lecture so that I would have time for my husband and then the children that will be coming forth. So that also helped me, job placement too matters. The fact that, we all have to be in the construction industry, there are different ways we can get into the construction industry. You can be in the academia. You can even be, somebody talked about software development and all of that. She will be in the office and just do only the soft things. Women will like soft life. So you can also be in the office and do all those soft things and not bother going to the field. But naturally, despite all of this soft landing I had, I am someone who likes to try the impossible when it comes to what I have learned. So I had to go into practice also, despite the fact that I lecture, since we have that leverage to practice and then lecture too. So that helped me, build me up to where I am today, because in practice I am there. When it comes to the academics, I am also there. So I married the two very well, and my family is not suffering. And that brings us to where I will talk about comprehensive training programs for the women. As a woman, you must balance your family and whatever you're doing, whether it's career and all other passions you have. I told myself that I don't want to have a failed marriage because of career, because I realized a lot of career women have failed marriages. But I said, I am going to balance up everything. And so I would always advocate for comprehensive training programs for women that will teach us how to balance your work life, your passion, and your career. You know, everything has to be balanced because childbirth will come. If you're working in a private firm, let's leave sentiments apart. There's no way someone would keep you off the job. I have the firm, I employ you, and you're off for 6 months. It's going to bring down, if you're a very, very active person, it's also going to bring down the returns of that firm. So I would think we should also have comprehensive training programs. And we would also talk about, I would also advocate for flexible work programs too. You know, we talked about them. Someone also mentioned remote jobs. You can work from home. There are a lot of things you can do from home today. You know, so those remote jobs will also come. And we should have supportive work environment. I know a lot of my students that had complained about being harassed by male lecturers. It's also part of what we are talking about, you understand? So that should be condemned in totality. No student who is under you that has come to learn should be harassed. Even as an intern, no employer should harass any female intern or a female student whom you're lecturing. We all have to be taught that, and we should be taught properly. And then we also have to look at recognition and visibility. In regards to recognition and visibility, we'll talk about the campaigns, aggressive campaigns to bring women or female graduates into the profession. First, we need to catch them young. When you look at what I do as a mentor, I start with secondary school students. I have programs for school students. I talk to them. You won't believe that you could go to a school now and you ask the students, how many of you know who an estate surveyor and valuer is? In a class, nobody. You ask quantity surveying, nobody. What they know is law, doctors, and engineers, you know, all those other professions. So how do we catch these female students? We need to start from the level of awareness campaigns, advocacy, and all of that. And where do we catch them? We need to make them know who we are, the services we provide in the society. It's very awesome when you pass through a building and you say, oh, I put this up. I was the one that did this. You know, it's a pride for you as a mother and even as a professional. But now the children don't really know how that came about. All they know is engineers are the ones that are doing all of these things. So I started an awareness campaign from secondary school. I do exercise books, put out what we do as estate surveyors behind the exercise books. So that will also help the children as they are progressing. If they keep coming to you, you can mentor them from there, make them like the belt industry, and they can come into the construction industry after a long while. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those beautiful insights. You talked about creating a balance. You talked about building yourself. You talked about recognition and visibility, targeted recruitment as well. So thank you very much. About the comprehensive training programs, you didn't really expatiate on that. You just mentioned it. Are you saying that the workplace they are to create, or as a person, you should go out and just put it?
Okay, for the comprehensive training programs, I think it's more of a personal development. You can learn a lot of these things through your own personal efforts, attending programs that would help.
Thank you very much. We'll come back to you on the second round. Okay, to the only man on the panel. Don't worry, we try to be gender sensitive so that the men would also have. But then it's interesting to hear a man's perspective, because we're talking about women, we're talking about our impact. But it's interesting to hear from a man's perspective what he thinks about this whole thing. And without wasting further time, because so if you want an hour, we really want to hear, but I mean, not an hour, but yes, we really like to hear your insights on this topic. And your question is QS Ola Garuba. Go right, doctor, this time around. Okay, so he'll be talking to us about equality. Equality is not merely a buzzword, it's a fundamental principle that should permeate every aspect of the construction workforce. Could you please share your visionary initiatives that could promote true gender parity, fostering an environment of mutual respect, opportunity, and growth?
Thank you very much. I must begin by saying I wonder how I found myself here. But I was comforted by the idea that blessed are you amongst women. And I must say, I have never been outnumbered in my life. I have never had the opportunity where I'm a minority as a man. And would you believe that in the first 5 minutes of sitting here, I had hair on my body? I'd begin by thanking the foundation, most especially for asking me to be here. I salute your effort because you're pioneering something. Research into the industry. In development economics, one of the factors they say is the biggest problem down south of the geography of the world is that there's no data. That's in the big industry, not to talk of construction. So the NIQS Foundation, NIQS researchers and so on, well done. And this must not stop. Well done. Now, moving forward, sadly, I don't have a personal experience. I'm not a woman, but it might interest you. I married a quantity surveyor. She never practiced. She went into baking. So I'll tell you in the course of time, the kind of fears and challenges she had. Now, I'm going to speak more at the industry level, therefore. I can't tell you how I was treated as a woman in the workplace. Do you know, when I heard her talk, I'm like, are we men so bad? What the hell? What are we doing to these women? But let me remind you, let me take you back in history. What is the history of the struggle in the workplace for equality? What happened was that in the Second World War in Britain, there was conscription, there was drafting of able-bodied men, and they all went to war, and most of them died in the war. Those women who were housewives had no choice but to go to the workplace. The wars dragged on. First World War, 1915. Second World War was finished, 45. All this period, the women had taken the position in the workplace. When the veterans came back, there was no place for them. On one hand. On the other hand, there was what you call the post-World War boom, when the veterans of the war came home and they were to be honored by more welfare, more hospitals, more schools, and so on and so forth. And Britain still had a stronghold of its colonial states and could take surplus, could take profit from them. That's how Britain, up until then to 1960, in the Labour parties, all the Taylor Woodrow and so on and so forth, initiated those massive welfare programs. So the economy was booming. The women weren't talked out. They stayed. And that was the history. So it was not like as if the men there are better than us. No. You must know the history. It is the result of a struggle, a phenomenon that happened that pushed men out, women replaced them, and never gave it up. Of course, when Margaret Thatcher came, it was the end. Through legislation, through everything, she entrenched women in the workforce. This did not happen in America. Why do you think Miss Clinton, why did she lose? I was amongst those who, up until the very last moment, we were waiting for her to make her announcement. I don't know how many of our students were old enough or who are active. Do you know what I mean? America wouldn't have a woman there. So, my ladies, it's a battle. It's no walk in the park. And we are not necessarily bad people. Thank you very much. Now let me move up. Let me move on to what my topic. A lot has been said. Incidentally, for me, the beginning also is the idea of advocacy, the fight for the heart and soul of society, to call out in society the practice of excluding women in the workplace. And this is what you are doing, NIQS Foundation. Well done. It must continue. For researchers, you have more work. Now, you have told us your result. You need a research into the industry. Who are the change champions? Who are you talked about 30 biggest contractors in the UK construction industry. In Nigeria, who are they? When you identify them, if they are public companies, they are obliged to open their books to you. Come and tell us, what is the gender balance there? If you found those, like for instance, in Rukaya's place, they are your change champions. You have to celebrate them and call out and shame and name and shame those who are not gender bias compliant. Today, if I have a son who is also a quantity surveyor, he works with Arcadis. Whenever he sends me something on the letterheaded, you will see a logo, gender diversity. They are proud of it. So we must begin to create the ideological conditions that celebrate gender diversity and compliance. Talking about how do we enforce it? For me, conceptually in life, you reward good behavior, you punish bad behavior. How do you reward good behavior? Empirically speaking, when we were young, the public sector was the biggest, their demand. We had the biggest contracts from government. Because they were the biggest players in the industry, they could lead change. How can they do this? What you call positive discrimination for those who are compliant. So in tender pre-qualification, therefore, one of the conditions should be that in your onboarding, when we ask you to submit your quality assurance and quality control, submit your HSE plan, your logistics plan, execution plan, we also ask you to submit your onboarding statistics. And we want to see that 30% of it or more. Am I cutting your pounded yam small? Do you want 50-50? Whatever it is that you can push, government must begin to include this as part of the criteria for pre-qualification for getting work. There's this buzz today about that coastal road, 15 trillion. Somebody with a 15 trillion naira contract in Nigeria, go there, please, and find out what is the statistics on their personnel and call them out if they fail. Now, on the other issue of all these practices at the site, in my time, the preliminary section specified all the things that the contractor must provide. True, at my time, we just said, provide a place for, toilet in the site. And that was all. NIQS, sir, the professions, shall we go back to government to revise those conditions to comply specifically with the things you have said? On the issue of diversification of the things you can do, well, I'm talking of the formal sector. Do you know, in construction, maybe just about 20% are formal. 80% are one-man companies. They wake up when there's work, they die when there's no work. It is not their fault. It is the widely fluctuating fortunes of the construction sector. When the economy sneezes, construction catches a cold, everybody is laid out. Now, moving forward on that, we're saying that how do we ensure that we punish bad behavior? It's legislation. So researchers, again, you must come forward and tell us what is the status of legislation in terms of labor relations, labor practices, provision for labor, as it concerns gender. How is it? Look, if you, professors in the university, when the students are coming for research, look, we've done enough of the productivity of farm work people on the site, productivity of this and that. Let's begin to do industry-wide research. Call those of them. You go. Come out. We even have people who are doing law, who have preference for law. Can you go there? Look at the rule books, the code books. What is the status of legislation in this area? So that, they say if there's no rule, there's no sin. So that when they fail, when you go and see them therefore, and they are breaking the rule, then you kick in to enforce the rules. On the whole idea of other trades, construction is also now getting very advanced and copying practices in the other places in the industry. You have roles like quality assurance and quality control. These are roles suited for women. You have health, safety, and environment. These are roles that women can play. You have document control, DCC, in the, somebody that's not secretary, somebody that collates, disseminates, arranges all information about the project. You have logistics lead. My time is up. Sorry. You have logistics lead. I'm talking about the division of labor in the industry and those that women can especially specialize in and find work in it. Let me just check just to make sure. I wrote a few things down that I wanted to say. Sorry, bear with me. Soft skill, logistics planning, review of research for legislation. Yeah, we talked about scholarships. Fantastic. Then the whole idea that, look, at the institute or somewhere, can we have a desk that when she wants a placement, she can phone so that it's the institute helping her? My wife just couldn't get up to say she's going to a place to go and find out work. She want me to follow her. There's that barrier. And indeed, do you know, my first time amongst all these women, I'm like, is this how you feel when you're amongst men? Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you for explaining to us the history of the battle between genders. And then you also explained to us the role of the government through the legislature, how they can come in and assist with this dynamic. So thank you very much, QS Ola Garuba, for those beautiful insights. I have one more question that I would like to throw out to everyone on the panel. However, I would like to go back to what we've all discussed one after the other. Let's throw a bit more light on particular instances from what we all discussed. So I'm going back to QS Choma. QS Choma, you spoke to us about the innovative strategies that you would propose to dismantle barriers and forge a more inclusive path forward. You spoke to us about the industry and how the women need to take personal development seriously in order to thrive in the industry. You also spoke about promoting visibility. how women should come out, because you shared a personal story about how you found a problem. You noticed that you didn't have enough lecturers in your school. And as a woman, you started by giving tutorials, preparing yourself for the future. And it's important that besides complaining, it's important that we also become part of the solution providers, which is what QS Trauma has done. You also talked about, okay, identifying a problem and solving it. I would like you to throw more light on promoting visibility from this angle. I'm a woman, and I'm sure that so many other women here have experienced this in one way or the other, where you feel shy to put yourself out there, not because you're not qualified enough, but because the atmosphere, there's too much testosterone, and the men just feel like we own this space, especially in the organizations, private organizations, even in the workplace. The men barely give the women enough room to speak out. Now, in a situation like that, how do you, against all odds, still put yourself out there? Because it's important that as a woman, you need to market yourself. You need to, if you're a quantity surveyor, for example, anywhere you stand or anywhere you visit, you should be able to be identified as a quantity surveyor, especially when you're practicing or when you're in the academia or anything. If you're an architect, there should be some value that you're bringing to the table that people would make you or highlight that, okay, yes, this lady represents this organization or this industry. So could you please throw more light on that? And this is just from a place of experience. How have you been able to, against all odds, like I say, and I put that very, very sternly because the barriers are always going to be present, but you've been able to rise through the ranks and you're now the HOD of Bayes University. Please, a round of applause for her because she's doing amazing work there. So how have you been able to start from scratch, continue through this journey and get to the top, and you're still at the top and you're still creating visibility? So could you give a few insights on that so that we can take that home? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Like I was discussing with someone, we have all these nice talks, wonderful strategies. Where the problem lies is implementing them, right? So the take home for young graduates here or young women who are just entering the construction industry or about to is do not be intimidated, right? You can do absolutely anything you want to do. So don't be scared that you are in a male-dominated industry. You can actually become a beacon of light wherever you are. So I know most of us are, concerned about making money after graduation. One thing I've realized is that everybody is looking for money, but money goes to only people who gives value. So identify something you can bring to the table, and if you don't know how to do it, don't panic. Submit yourself for mentorship, right? There are experienced women who have broken through these barriers and are doing so well on the other side where you want to get to. So submit yourself and learn from them. So you can gain a lot of experience from their own experiences that will help you to overcome these barriers and also remain relevant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that wonderful summary. And students, I know you're here, so you should be taking, in fact, you have your recorders on, because all the value that is being dropped today, you would wish you had this before now, because they're very, very key insights into how to put yourself forward in the professional industry. So thank you very much once again, QS Trauma. I'm going over to my second panelist, Professor Rukayat Bashir Tukur. Noted, so you see I didn't make any corrections. Okay, so you spoke about how we can address root causes of the high turnover rates, high job turnover, the alarming rates in the construction industry for women. You spoke about the quota system. You spoke about gender equity and gender equality. You spoke about the security in the construction industry and how the women are exposed to a lot of dangers because they're in a male-dominated space. You gave an example of site activities. You also spoke about creating an enabling environment. And in particular, you shared a very interesting story, personal story about how you had to switch jobs because of the practice in that organization. So aside the examples and the topics that you've thrown out there to educate us on the reasons for the high turnover and how we can implement, I would like to shift a little to your personal story as to how you were in the banking sector. You noticed that there was an issue. You were not comfortable with the organization's practice, and you put yourself first and made a switch. But you did not just make a switch. You did not just sit down and take defeat. You went back, put together another strategy, and you continued. So I would like you to just talk to us a bit more about it, because a lot of women here today have experienced that in one way or the other, especially to the young ones. And a lot of times, I don't have the results from a data that has been, or research that has been conducted on that, but from experience and from personal relationship with people, most people get discouraged, and then they go back, and then they're very perplexed, and they do not know how to start from scratch or how to start from where they stopped. But it's important to know oneself, understand what you're bringing to the table, and see how you take every disappointment and then carve a way out like you've done. So could you please throw more insight on that, and how a word of advice to the audience as to how to proceed in difficult situations like that?
Okay, thank you. This is a bit tricky because it's not a one size fits all. So one has to always gauge the environment, the situation you find yourself. But one of the things that I think worked for me personally was being able to identify what I could do and what I could not do. And what I could do, I honed my skills towards those ones. One of my strengths that I have identified is that I have perseverance. I can persevere in situations many people would give up. Okay, so I'll still tell another story to that. I remember I met the immediate past secretary to the government of the Federation, and he wanted to send my name for something, which he eventually did, but politics overtook that. But I'm grateful to him for that. So he asked me, what is that one strength that you think you have? I said, I can persevere. He said, give me an example of your perseverance. So I thought long and hard. So I said, okay, I think the most practical one is I went for a PhD in the UK with 2 children, aged 4 and 6, alone. And my PhD was supposed to be for 4 years. I did it in 3.5 years, and I came back with a 3rd child. So I think that's one thing that tested my limits in everything I had done in life. And in the process of persevering, I learned one very important skill, which is you have to be organized. You simply just have to organize your life. Because you're working or you're doing a PhD, you don't stop being a mother, you don't stop being a wife, you don't stop being a daughter, you don't stop being a sibling. So you have to be able to balance all those things. And in the course of the balance, you will discover yourself, you will discover more strengths. And then you will discover some of the things that you don't do too well. And you just set them aside. And then focus on those things that you do well and hold your skills there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You came back with not just a PhD, but also another degree. Wow. If that isn't the definition of perseverance, I don't know what is. So thank you very much for sharing your story and teaching us that you just have to keep going regardless. Understand your strength, know what you're good at, and take advantage of that to continue to push. So thank you very much once again. You spoke about balance, which leads us to the next panelist, estate surveyor, Dr. Mrs. Ethel Mendy, Department of Estate Management and Valuation, University of Abuja. She spoke to us about the transformative solutions that she would advocate to enhance employment prospects and ensure long-term retention within the dynamic sector, where she mentioned targeted recruitment, building of oneself, creating a balance like has been shared recently. You also talked about introducing comprehensive programs, and you also talked about recognition and visibility. So, targeted recruitment, now, that's what I would like you to please throw a bit more light on. So now, how do you mean when you talk about targeted recruitment? I understand another panelist spoke about the quota system. Yes, Dr. spoke about the quota system where people, they intentionally pick women and put them at the bottom of the cadre so that it becomes very difficult for them to climb, and then they get discouraged very quickly. So is that what you're also referring to, or do you have another angle with regards to the targeted recruitment?
Okay, thank you very much. That's part of it, but on the other hand, when I'm talking about targeted recruitment, sometimes you can have a scholarship and you have the quota for women higher. Or sometimes it's just for women alone. You would see some grants, they will tell you it's for women. Today as I speak, I think NIPS in Kuru has graciously given a higher percentage to women, to come in. Because when you get into the strategic leadership program out there, you see that it's more male-dominated also. 98% of the people who attend that program are males. So they are giving a soft landing to the women, by saying, okay, if you're a woman and you're nominated by a group of women, maybe like an NGO, or maybe you do anything that has to do with gender equality and all that, you can be nominated to come in. You understand? So that's what I mean by targeted recruitment. And on the other hand, the scholarships, as I said earlier, can also be targeted, as I said before. And then even internships. There are some jobs, even in my own area of expertise, you would see some firms would put out adverts for job, and they will be very specific.
Sorry. There's a bit of chaos. Could you please settle down so we can listen to the summary from the panelists? It's very important that we get the ending of this very interesting discussion. Thank you.
90% of our colleagues would put out jobs, and they would be very specific about it. Males only. Very specific, it's very common. They do that a lot. And then the next thing you would hear is, you can't drive the car to, maybe if you need to do an inspection in Gwagwalada, you can't go that way to do it. We need a man who would be able to drive the car and move around the town, whether traffic or not, and all of that. So there are some jobs that there should be some form of blind interview. Don't put out whether male or female. Let's go out there and attend the interviews like our male counterparts would do. So that's what I mean by targeted recruitment. Don't say male or female, just put out the job. If the woman is good, give it to her. If the man is good, you give it to him.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure we have a lot of employers in our midst, and you've heard it from Estate Surveyor, Ms. Ethel Mendy. She says that targeted recruitment is important. We should do blind interviews. Who knows? You may just have that one person, that one female, that would turn your organization around and turn your profits into 200% or whatever. But you're all looking for the men. You don't know that the women are also diamonds out there. Thank you very much for that beautiful contribution to it. Your question really was to talk about enhancing employment prospects and how to ensure long-term retention. This is pretty much a personal thing, really, separate from all that she's talked about. It's a personal decision. You alone are responsible for your personal development. There's no employer out there that would want to come and spend more money to, train you. So you need to make yourself employable. You need to make yourself prepared for the roles out there. There are jobs out there. Don't let anybody deceive you. You have to be ready. The question you should be asking yourself is, what have I done to make myself ready for that job? What have I done to increase my pay slip? What have I done to myself to make sure that the MD position that is open, I can put in an application, or that project management position that is open, of course I'm able to do it. I'm very capable. How have you put yourself or made yourself ready to sell yourself to the public? Thank you very much for that beautiful contribution. To the only man in our midst who has added a lot of color to this discussion and has also thrown more light from the male's perspective on this topic. Thank you very much, Mr. QS Ola Garuba. You spoke about your visionary initiatives that could promote true gender parity and fostering an environment of mutual respect, opportunity, and growth. You particularly spoke about the government's involvement from the legislative angle, where they should have rules or, rules in place that would, assist in this. We hear this all the time, and like Shoma said as well, we plan, we listen, but implementation is the problem. So I would really like you, sir, to throw more light on that. People plan. I'm sure the legislature, the government in its entirety has different plans, and they're always speaking about gender equality. They're always thinking about creating a balance. But we still see that is lacking. So we can only talk, and keep talking until our talks and our presentations get to the right ears. So I would like you to please throw more light on that and how specific ways that you feel the government can, drive this gender equity or drive this balance in the employment industry or in the workforce and in the construction industry at large.
Thank you. So that's why I said it starts with research. What is the status? It will be interesting for those who have capacity or resources for research to actually speak to the status. What is it? What do the rule books say? And then push this out into the public space. Bring the minds of all society, focus at it. And then through all the whole area of maybe review, getting lobby efforts to review those that are not gender friendly, partner with international organizations who are sensitive to this, let them fund, let them publicize. Do you know what I mean? Because we will speak in the dark because you and I don't even know the status. What is it saying? And if you go there, let's know what it's saying. Let's see how it discriminates against women. Let's see the changes that we want. The move to the whole process of change in legislation. So that, as we've said, if there's no rule, there's no say. Take, for instance, that employer in Nigeria that said no application from women. All a woman needs to do is to apply for that work, get rejected, and sue the person, and he will be sued. Nobody can try that in the UK. Do you know what I mean? So it's the whole idea of the processes to review legislation and following up with it. Thank you.
Full contribution. Yes. Thank you. Even though, sir, when you mentioned suing, I'm sure when a lot of people, when we hear going to court or something, we shy away from it. But it's important to understand your rights. It's important to know that you also have a voice. A lot of things that we take very lightly. If you know your rights, you would be amazed as to the level that you would get to get what you actually deserve. So thank you very much, sir, for that beautiful insight. NIQS Foundation has put this together, and we would like to say a big thank you to them in collaboration with Ahmadu Bello University, Northumbria University, Newcastle, and the British Council. We are really grateful for putting this together, and I'm very, very certain that all of us have